Alrighty, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the chat. I am Kneeckoh with the Enter the Chat Gaming Podcast, joined by my co-host today, Rico
What's good?
and Toby.
Howdy.
And we are back. We're recording this actually earlier than we normally do. We normally record on the weekend, and I upload it on Monday. But we're actually recording in the middle of the week because I've got plans all weekend. So we're doing this pretty quickly after the last recording. So hopefully we'll actually have some stuff to talk about. We're going to be talking about Game Pass a lot today, but in terms of stuff that we've actually been playing, we'll see what happens there. But we are the End of the Chat Gaming Podcast, where we talk about games each and every week, everything gaming. We talk a lot about PlayStation, Xbox, because that's what we all play, but we do also cover Switch and all that other fun stuff. We are on YouTube and podcast services, still not on Apple because Apple hates us apparently. And that's whatever. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and a couple other obscure ones. What's happened this week? This list is subject to change because we are recording this early. But as of right now, I reviewed Boomerang X for the Nintendo Switch, which was a treat. Rico recapped the state of play, talked about all the cool new stuff coming to PlayStation. I have a Monster Hunter Stories First Impressions that is going to go up, and there may be something else just depending on if the guys send me anything to edit. But again, that's all subject to change. Who knows when any of that's actually going up. The Boomerang X and the State of Play stuff is live by the time this goes up, because this will still go up on Monday, the normal upload time. But first off, our topic that we're going to be covering today, like I said, is Game Pass. We're going to be talking about the implications of Game Pass, what it's changed in gaming, and all that fun crap right there. But what have we been playing? I'm going to kick it to Toby first. We went with Rico first last time. Toby, what do you got for us?
Well, I've been playing more Second Extinction, a lot of it actually. And then I've been playing a little bit. I actually hopped into it today, Final Fantasy X. I haven't gotten very far yet. I'm still level 1, but I'm I'm starting it. We're gonna get into it. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna waste my life playing it.
How long is that
And
one?
then I've also started Darkest Dungeons,
You pick some
which makes
long
me
games.
want to
Long
bang my
games.
head against the wall.
You like the really
Darkest-
long games.
Darkest Dungeons, that's like the game where you actually have to watch your party's like stress and anxiety and all that stuff, right?
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, that one. Have fun with that.
I've had so many people become masochists.
I've
Then
heard.
they just refuse healing, dude. They refuse it.
Am I
I'm
thinking of
just
something else? Did I see there was going to be a sequel to that game?
I have no idea.
I think
I feel like I
there was a
remember
sequel
seeing
announced.
something about a sequel being announced, but I don't know for sure. I don't recall 100%. That game came out a while ago. It was big on Steam and Switch, and then I think it just recently dropped on Game Pass.
Thankfully, we have the power of Google to find out.
Yeah, what do you got for us? Is it coming out? Is there another one?
Yeah, there is another one in the works, simply just called Darkest Dungeons 2. That's basically it.
I was going to say, I was pretty sure I saw it somewhere. I don't recall where.
Yeah, think there should be like a teaser trailer 2 out about it. Because, yeah, like you said, Darkest Dungeon came out like quite some time ago.
Yeah. All right, Rico, what have you been playing? Even though it's only been like 4 days since we last recorded the podcast.
Don't underestimate me. So, let's see. I started Plague Tales Innocence because that was one of the PlayStation Plus free games this month. So far, pretty nice game. Kind of like the whole setting and all that stuff for it. Recently picked up Monster Hunter Stories as well, so I'll probably be starting that, and who knows, probably right after we get off of this. And also dove back into some Immortals Phoenix Rising DLC, because I want to get through all the DLC on that.
The DLC's added a lot, like whole new characters, whole new story, different gods.
Oh yeah, like aside, like the first one was like basically just more trials to play through as Phoenix, and then I think the next two were literally like different gods and characters. And then the last DLC actually changed it up a bit. Now you still the same game, but you play from like a top-down perspective, which I found like pretty interesting. Because I guess the reason why is it's supposed to be a perspective of you, Phoenix, like looking down on the mortal realm. Which I think it's very unique.
I'm kind of hoping. I've been waiting. I have it on Switch. I started it. I really liked it. I've been waiting to see if it comes to Game Pass because I know it has cross save. and it doesn't run the best on Switch. So if it comes to Game Pass, I'd transfer my save and play the rest of it on there. That's my hope and dream.
Yeah, once you get it on a next gen console, that's where it'll really shine. Because for the art style, which originally I wasn't a fan of, it really grew on me. Plus, like everything, just all the colors and everything, gave me like. I know people are gonna groan up hearing this. It gave me Breath of the Wild vibes.
I
But in
mean,
a
the
good way.
game is pretty much a Breath of the Wild clone.
Basically, but still enough different stuff to differentiate itself.
Yeah, it's different enough that they didn't get, you know, a lawsuit.
Yeah, you know, one of those fun cease and desists from Nintendo.
Yeah. For me, what the hell have I been playing? I finished Psychonauts, finished it up, and it was fantastic. I gotta talk about it because I was in an Xbox chat with Toby while it was happening, and God, old games are old, man. Some of the mechanics especially on the last couple boss fights, just don't work that great, and it was incredibly frustrating because I knew what I had to do, but just the game not cooperating with me was just so infuriating. I was going nuts. But the final boss fight was good. I enjoyed the final boss fight. I didn't have a problem with it. It's just the two right before that. Oh, I was ready to throw my controller through the monitor. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, that's the one downside of like going back and playing them older games where it's your favorites or you're trying something for the first time. It's gonna kick your ass.
And then I went back and watched the Psychonauts 2 reveal trailers and like the last trailer we got during E3, and I'm pretty sure this is taking place right after the events of Psychonauts 1. Like, I don't think there's any gap. From the way that the Psychonauts 1 ended to what we saw in the trailer, I think it's just boom, immediately after we're picking up.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like too surprising because I don't think they wanted to go through the whole process of trying to like build up a new character when they can just have you play as the one from the first game.
Yeah, the way it ended, I could definitely see why they were able to just leave it as it was for so long, because I mean, the way it ended, it was pretty open-ended, but now it's like, okay, they're just going to pick it right up, and I'm looking forward to it so much. I'm really looking forward to it. I started Ghost of Tsushima on PlayStation 5. God, that game is pretty. 60 frames a second on the freaking resolution mode. God, I've been playing in photo mode. Photo mode has been treating me good.
I told you, man, you're gonna spend a lot of time in that photo mode.
Yeah.
I rarely touch photo modes in games, but when Ghost of Tsushima came out, I took so many photos with that and then saved them all on my phone. I still got a bunch, and I'm just like, dude, these are works of art.
They're so good, and the game is super good. I mean, I'm about where I was when I stopped playing the last time through.
Well, that's not very far.
Yeah, it wasn't very far. Like, I was playing, and then I don't remember what happened. If I got distracted by something else, or if it was when I was trying to go back through The Last of Us Part 2 again. I don't remember what took me away from Ghost of Tsushima, but I'm glad I waited, because honestly, the 60 frames makes this 1,000 times better. With how good the game looked on PlayStation 4, getting that 60 frame bump, it makes me really excited for the director's cut, too, because I'm going to beat it, and I'm ready for the DLC. I'm really looking forward to it, because it's like a perfect mix of, like, I don't know, it's like Assassin's Creed to a point. There's only certain parts that are like Assassin's Creed. There's not as much free climbing, but it's just so cool.
It's like I almost want to say it's almost like a better Assassin's Creed, because it does have, like, you know, great stealth play, and then, you know, the actual like fast-paced combat is, while simple, also very like tactical too. It's just switching up stances.
Yes, and it's not as easy in like Assassin's Creed. It's super easy to just hit the counter and, you know, insta kill people. Where this, you gotta time it just right to get the insta kill, and it's super satisfying when you do it. Oh, it's so good. I just stand there and wait for him to attack, and then deflect with my sword and slice their neck open. Like, that hits. And then all the side objectives are pretty cool. Like the haikus are interesting. I like following the foxes around to get the charms and all that stuff. I'm super looking forward. My goal is to be full stealth in this playthrough. I want to be the ghost. That's my goal.
And that's the great thing. You really do like have that option. I don't remember if there was any instances where like it kind of forced you into like an all-out fight setting. I can't remember. But for the most part, you really can go stealth for at least majority of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I like mixing it up. Like, I like to take out a couple guys and then do the standoff thing and then slice a guy in half. Like, I go back and forth, but I like to take out all the perimeter guys with the stealth stuff and then go in and handle the middle guys pretty quickly. But
Yeah.
again, it looks super good. I'm gonna be playing a lot in photo mode. I've got a feeling. I'm hoping to see some more stuff when the director's cut comes out that functions with the
Oh,
DualSense.
trust.
I want to see like a
Oh,
lot of
trust me, you
DualSense
will.
functionality, and see if they maybe do some upgraded graphics and things of that nature. I'm really looking forward to the director's cut now.
Yeah, especially since I guess it's been sort of revealed that the director's cut is going to add an additional 15 to 20 hours of content from the Iki Island, I
I
think it
did
was
see that
called.
as well, and I'm looking forward to that. That looks pretty exciting to see all of that new stuff getting added. When's the Death Stranding director's cut come out? That's pretty soon.
I believe I mentioned that in the state of play recap, and I believe it's actually on September 24th, so like just end of next month.
Yeah, I think it's around the same time as the Ghost of Tsushima director's cut.
It's not too far off. I'm sure if I, do a quick
Yeah, it's
Google,
pretty
because
close though. But yeah, the game, I was not expecting it to. I don't know why I wasn't expecting it to play smoothly, but I just wasn't ready for it. And God, is it so pretty on the PS5? That's one of my favorite things right now is just going back to the PS4 games and seeing how good they're running.
Okay, so Ghost of Tsushima director's cut is actually coming out next month, so a month prior to Death Stranding
Oh, it's an
director's cut.
August release. Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's what I've been playing, and then I've been running some Fortnite, some Rocket League, some Second Extinction with Toby here and there, and then some Warzone thrown in, sprinkled in here and there. Really looking forward to the next Call of Duty. I'm kind of interested to see what they do with Warzone with that, because this one's a World War
It,
II, and I've heard that they're pretty much revamping Warzone for that setting, which I'm very excited about.
as long as they fix all the cheaters, then who knows? Maybe
Yeah,
I'll give
not
it a
a
try
chance.
again.
Activision's just a small indie company, so
Yeah, just small indie company. They don't really have a lot of money to invest in something like
yeah,
that.
they don't have the resources or anything like that. But
Yeah, I know. So you gotta give them a break.
yeah, we're going to talk about Xbox Game Pass today, though, because that has been a topic we constantly talk about Game Pass. So I think it's time we finally just have a whole podcast dedicated to talking about Game Pass, because it's such a big deal. Because I remember when they announced it, I wrote it off. I was like, this is never going to take off. It's going to be just like PlayStation Now, where only certain people are using it because they don't, support it enough. And that's just not the case, where we're getting first party games day and date with the actual release date on this thing. It's just super, super awesome. So we're going to go around. Toby and I have Xbox. You're a PlayStation guy. So we're going to talk about our thoughts just off the bat on Game Pass. I'm going to start with Toby. What do you got for me?
I mean, it is the only way that I get games. So
He's the
I
way.
think it's a great thing. I
Yeah,
have so many different options too. Like I'm pre-downloaded a new JRPG that's gonna come out called Chris Tale. I'm thinking about covering it on the channel a little bit. Just a little preview. I'm really excited for it. It's all hand drawn, but you also get like Bethesda was bought, so you get all the Bethesda games. I'm a big Skyrim, as I said. I've played Fallout 4 probably as much as Skyrim, and it's just you get all the games that you want, and it's a reasonable price. So what's the complaint about?
exactly. And would you say you play more games now? I mean, I know the answer, but for everybody,
I mean, on my consoles, yes, by far.
yeah. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is just having all of those games at your disposal. Like for me personally, I've played so many more games than I ever have in the past, just because I don't have to think, oh, I've only got X money, I'm going to put it toward this game because I care about this game more than another game. Rico, toss it to you. What do you think about Game Pass being a PlayStation only kind of guy?
I will say, like, Game Pass, it's good enough to where it's had me actually thinking and debating on, one day getting an Xbox, mainly around this, like, next gen, current gen right now. I wasn't so much thinking about it during the Xbox One era, but then they acquired Bethesda. I heard, like, all the Bethesda games are going to be in there, including future games like Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 eventually. And with so many games like dropping day and date on Game Pass at no extra charge, it just really has me thinking. Is like it's like my backlog would increase a substantial amount with an Xbox and Game Pass, but it's like there's so many games I could probably like finally try out or give a go that normally I would spend who knows how much money on if it's available on PlayStation. So I've always thought of this, especially recently. Game Pass is definitely like one of, if not the best gaming deals you can get today.
Absolutely. So for me, I didn't have an Xbox till this generation. This is my first Xbox, and I I used Game Pass briefly on PC, but my PC's not that powerful, so being able to actually, use it and use it effectively just wasn't within the ability of my PC. So when I finally got the Xbox and started using Game Pass and all that stuff, it was fantastic. Especially being me as someone who's already had a YouTube channel for so long, covers a bunch of different games. What are you doing? He's just mouthing everything I'm saying as I'm going. It's so distracting. But being someone, like I was saying, who has a YouTube channel and reviews games and talks about games and everything like that, and having so many more games at my disposal, and like I was saying earlier, not having to decide, okay, I've only got this much money in the budget right now. I have to decide between, this game, that game, or the other. I could just download all of them. And for me, who's someone who enjoys pretty much every style of game to some capacity, obviously some hit harder than others for me, having the ability to try out all these different games or play games that I've missed along the way, it's just gotten so much. I've gotten so much more use out of my Xbox having this particular service versus like my PlayStation. And this was something I was talking about with Rico before we started recording, was that I have really turned in, and he's been making fun of me for it, I've kind of turned into an Xbox where I just kind of I rally around this because it's such a good service. And like my buddy has been texting me, he's been trying to get his hands on a PlayStation, and he texted me today. He goes, I got a predicament. And I was like, oh, okay, what do you got? He goes, I can't get a PlayStation. They sold out too fast, but I can get the Xbox. And I was like, well, what are you going to play on it? And he's like, well, I mainly play, multiplayer stuff and like Call of Duty and that kind of stuff. And I was like, honestly, dude, the Xbox is technically the more powerful console. And in terms of multiplayer offerings, it's just dramatically better with crossplay and everything else because Sony's so weird about their crossplay. I was like, honestly, I just roll with the Xbox. And then if you do want to play single player stuff, you have the ability to get Game Pass for a little extra cost to your Xbox Live membership and have so many more games if you want to play other stuff along the way. But yeah, in terms of actual multiplayer offerings, I think Xbox is the way to go. And I've been telling everybody, it's like, which console should I get? It's like, you need to get the Xbox if you're playing, if you want to spend less but get more out of it.
Yeah. And like I remember, I think at like one point it was like I seen like grow so fond of Xbox. I'm just thinking to myself, I was like, is Phil Spencer in his home right now and he's just like holding a gun to his head off camera?
No.
To where like he's all about Xbox now. I was thinking like, it's like, damn, this is like, I knew he would probably like Xbox and Game Pass a bit, but this is much more dramatic than what I thought it would be.
It's just a phenomenal service, and it really, like, for $15 a month, and having access to all of those games in a constant, rotation. There's a bunch more stuff added. Obviously, stuff is getting taken away, but seeing more and more stuff added, you hop in, you play so many different games. Like, most of the games on my Xbox, aside from like the free ones, are all Game Pass games. I think the only games that I've bought for my Xbox that I actually paid money for were Resident Evil 8, Cyberpunk 2077, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So 3 games in the last 8 months versus on PlayStation, I've probably spent just as much, and I've only played 3 games. Where on my Xbox, I've played a whole array of games.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Xbox definitely offers that a much larger variety for not as much money. Whereas on the PlayStation side, yeah, you got your PlayStation Plus free games, which is usually only like 3, maybe 4 games every month. And yeah, they do have the PS Now service, but those are games you're actually able to download. It's just streaming those games. It's not as good as Game Pass. Basically,
Yeah,
it's an all right service, but it's nothing on the level that Game Pass is.
Yeah, and now even Game Pass has that option where you can go in on your iOS devices, your PC, your Android tablets, whatever it may be, and you can still play these games. Obviously, it depends on your internet connection how good these are actually going to run, but it is something that is available. Like, I've played a bunch of games on my iPad and stuff where I'm not away from my Xbox, but I still want to play. And the way it just picks up your console save without having to transfer anything is phenomenal. It's a fantastic thing. I played Sea of Thieves on my iPhone SE. If you can process that. Like, a game of that stature on my iPhone.
I'm trying to, and my mind just did like the Windows dial-up sound, just like, ha!
Yeah, it's just, it's a great service. So, we talked about how you said, Rico, that you were thinking that you were going to get an Xbox because of this and the offering that it gives you. But what kind of impact has it had for you, Toby? Are you thinking like, because you're someone who doesn't buy every brand new game that comes out. You're someone that waits for the price drops and stuff like that. And you're willing to wait, where Rico and I are more like, we got to have it day one because we want to be a part of the conversation. We want to tweet about it and talk about stuff and all that fun stuff. So it's like, how does this affect you? Are you going to be more likely to hop into things like Halo, like Forza, like Back for Blood, like all these other games that are coming out day and date on Game Pass? Are you more likely to try out all of these different games that in the past you would have just left behind?
Well, I mean, yeah, I have the ability to download them for basically free. I'm already paying the subscription, so as long as I have space on the console, I don't see why I wouldn't give them a shot.
Yeah, it's that, and that's how I am. Like games that I just would have never thought about playing, I have downloaded and I've really enjoyed, and I just keep doing it, and it's fantastic. It, like I keep saying that I'm like a broken fucking record, but the offerings really are freaking phenomenal. So now the big conversation, like we're not just here to fucking suck Xbox's dick, okay? We're here to actually talk about what we think that Game Pass is going to do to gaming. So obviously, in my opinion, this is going to have a huge impact on Sony and how they handle games and just gaming in general. Like I think Nintendo is going to find a way to follow suit, if not just put Xbox on their system. What do you guys think? How is Xbox Game Pass specifically going to affect gaming? I'm going to kick it to Rico.
So I think it's gonna affect gaming like mainly in a couple ways. One, it's definitely gonna encourage more so like companies switching over to more having games available more so digitally than like physical games. So that's one way I think it's going to change it, because I'm sure like if you were to look at like the numbers for like how many games are downloaded and play off of Game Pass, it would be a substantially big number. And another thing I think it's also going to change. I don't know if Nintendo would follow suit with this, because it's Nintendo, they do their own thing. They don't really concern themselves so much about the competition or anything like that. They're just like, whatever. But with PlayStation, this is more so something I hope changes, and not somewhere that I think that they're currently working on. But I'm hoping they look at how well Game Pass is doing and how much success it's had, and how it's basically like the main selling points of Xbox consoles now, and they sort of revamp their at least their PS Now service, or maybe come up with something new to rival Game Pass. And with the main difference being, you'll have more like Sony exclusive games on there, kind of like with the PlayStation Plus collection, just in Game Pass format.
See, and on that subject, on PS Now, do you think PS Now can ever actually achieve what Game Pass has? Because right now, when I think Xbox, my brain immediately says Game Pass. Like, that's just, it goes hand in hand, because that's where you're playing most of your games. That's where you're telling your friends, like, why don't you just upgrade your Xbox Gold membership and just, have Game Pass and have more games, because that gives us more games to hop in and play and randomly try. Like, I've got a bunch of my buddies to play stuff like Dead by Daylight, because that's just there. They don't have to pay anything else. They just download it, and we could play a bunch of different games that way. So do you think that they could ever get PS Now, with how long it's been around? Do you think they can get it to a point that it is the same as Game Pass? Because right now, I think most people look at PS Now and they laugh, because it's been kind of a joke.
Yeah, as it is now, no, definitely not. If they wanted to get to the level of Game Pass, they would have to like completely rebrand it, revitalize it, basically completely change it's basically completely change on what it is now, and then like, push the like marketing and the hell out of the branding for it, like really push, like, it's like, hey, Game Pass is good and all, but PS Now is now going to be like where it's at, or something like that. So they would have to put in a lot of work really to get PS Now to that level.
See, and I don't know if they necessarily have to rebrand. I just think they have to re-strategize. They need to really think about what PS Now is going to be, because at this point, if Xbox is coming out and throwing their games on Game Pass day one, it's not like, that's the big point. Is like right now, like what was it, like 2 years before God of War hit PS Now after it released, where we're playing Xbox games the same day. Like, they need to rethink how they're putting their exclusives on PS Now if they want that service to be the same. Now, I'm not saying that PlayStation's really all that concerned, because people show up in fucking droves for PlayStation games. Like, I bought a PlayStation 5 just to play those games. Like, that's the only reason I have the damn console. So I'm not saying that it's necessarily something that is hurting them. I don't think this is going to be a change that we're going to see in the short term. I definitely think it's a long-term game, especially like you were saying, as we move more in toward a digital style gaming future. Toby, what do you think on all this?
Well, I mean, I don't think that PlayStation has to necessarily respond. Like they could I think that they have two options pretty much. They're either gonna follow suit and try to pick up a service similar to Xbox Game Pass to bring people in and try to compete, or they're gonna stick to the method they've been doing and they're just gonna focus on these cinematic experience games. I mean, as you said, you bought a PlayStation 5 just for those games. So why not just continue what they're doing now? It's not broken. Why fix it?
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, over the last couple days, you've been telling me how much you want a PlayStation 5 now, because I've been talking about like Ghost of Tsushima. I saw your face when I mentioned Ghost of Tsushima. That little smirk. You were like,
It's sad, all right, because you put no time into this game, and I told you time and time again to get on because it is such a phenomenal game. And now that you have a PlayStation 5, now you're talking about it. When I have been saying it's great since day one. Day freaking one.
I never said that I stopped playing because it was a bad game. I got distracted and now I'm back on it and it's so pretty, and now you're sad. Now you keep telling me, you're like, I want a PlayStation 5.
I always thought the DualSense was cool. Like originally I didn't even want an Xbox just because I wanted the DualSense and everything, because I wanted to feel that bowstring. I wanted to feel the gunfire. I wanted to feel everything and like just really feel immersed because I play RPGs and I wanted to be in that realm as much as I humanly could.
Mm-hmm.
And but then you told me about Game Pass, so I had to get the Xbox and it's cheaper. But
And the Bethesda acquisition.
But like now that they're upgrading all these PS4 games that I had, God of War's on 5, Ghost of Tsushima is getting the director's cut, which is a DLC that I need. So I mean, I kind of need the 5 at this point.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the director's cut is on the PS4 as well.
Yeah, it's on both. There's just like it's not so much with the director's cut. I think there's some like features that are going to be like just for the PS5.
Yeah,
like
but why would I want to play that when I could get it in 60 frames, DualSense, beautiful
and
visuals.
that is one
I
thing.
Need it.
On the subject of, Sony's response to Game Pass, I think that's where the divide is the biggest this generation. Like, I made my review over the DualSense, and that went up today. And I was talking about, the big difference. Like, if you look at the two systems, they're almost the same in what they do. We got ray tracing, 60 frames, great graphics, all the stuff we wanted out of next gen. But if you look at the actual, like, hardware outside of that, Xbox doesn't really have a whole lot of like the new hardware. Pretty much everything's the same, even on the internal. I mean, like if you go into the Xbox and you look at the homepage, it's almost identical to the Xbox One. So there's not really a whole lot of change from them. The biggest change from them was the, putting the nail in the coffin on Game Pass and really hunkering down and, being like, this is what we're about this generation. Whereas Sony then, went with the hardware stuff. They made the headphones that work, like, I don't even know what the specs are on the headphones, like the 3D audio or whatever the hell they're using to describe it. They have the DualSense controller. So they're more focused on their, again, like Tony was saying, the cinematic experiences versus the, we have this kind of offering thing.
Yeah, like, obviously, like, they're both similar, but they both do like their own like one big thing. You got Xbox with the Game Pass and the sheer amounts of games they offer. Then you have PlayStation with these like super cinematic games they have. It's to the point where like you mentioned, like the headphones and that 3D audio. I have lately actually been debating on getting a pair of those headphones to see is this 3D audio as big a deal as like they're making it out to be.
Yeah, and it's just that's like the big difference is like Xbox this generation was like, hey, we're pretty much staying the same. We just look prettier and we have Game Pass, where Sony's like, we've got all these cool features. Like when you play the New Horizon, you're going to feel the bow bend in the controller. Or like with
I need
Astro
it.
Playroom, especially, it's like rolling the little guys around. Like everything that you did in Astro, you felt in the controller. Like you could tell which direction the wind was blowing from the controller. Like it was insane. So there's a definite difference there. But back on the topic of like PS Now, I think if they really wanted to get it to the point that Game Pass is, they need to start making um big deals like Game Pass has with the EA Play. Go ahead, Rico. I see your hand raised.
So I was gonna say, like, the one way I could think of that they could make PS Now better is allow you to download games, and two, essentially combine that with the PlayStation Plus monthly free games. Because lately they've been doing it to where like a new game comes out on PlayStation, and for like its first month it's free for PlayStation Plus. So
Mhm.
why not just take those two concepts and basically like make them together in a sort of like new, also not so new service on PlayStation in a way.
Yeah.
It could be
But
something as simple as that.
But yeah, I'm saying like they need to have like Xbox has EA Play, so they have all the EA games as soon as they come out. Except for I don't think Battlefield's going to be on there. There's a couple exceptions to that, but then they
Yeah.
could go ahead and get like what is it, Ubisoft Now or Ubisoft whatever it is, the Ubisoft service that you can get. If Sony went ahead and dropped the money and was like, hey, we want you on PlayStation Now, that would be a big power move to get it on the same level.
Yeah. However, I have seen like I think it was what was the name? I keep forgetting the guy's name that represents PlayStation. PlayStation's Phil Spencer. I keep
Jim
forgetting his name.
Ryan,
Jim
Jim
Ryan.
Ryan.
Yep, that's it. I think he came out and said like they're not in so much in like acquisitions war with Xbox. Like, Xbox had like this huge acquisition with Bethesda, but PlayStation isn't so much looking to like go that route of like buying any like huge developers or companies. They have acquired like some, smaller companies or like started new ones, but it doesn't seem like they're too interested in going after like big companies like say like buying out Ubisoft or maybe even buying out Square Enix, which that'd be insane in its own right.
Well, I'm not saying necessarily that they have to buy Ubisoft, but Ubisoft has some sort of subscription service similar to what, EA Play is or Game Pass where you can just play the games if you pay the service. Getting something like that roped into the PS Now subscription would be a huge move for getting that on the same level of Game Pass, especially because Ubisoft has so many fantastic, franchises that people love, like Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, the Tom Clancy stuff. There's a lot of games there, and I've been hoping Game Pass, makes that deal where we get all the Ubisoft stuff on Game Pass. Just it's just there. That would be a phenomenal move. But moving on, back on the topic of Game Pass and how it is possibly going to shape the future, how do you think this is going to affect actual game sales? Like, there was an interesting metric that Rico was telling me about in terms of what was it? Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance. That was the game where it was like 94% of the sales were on PlayStation. And that's because that game released day and date on Game Pass. So the question becomes, do you think that we're going to move to a point in gaming where people simply leave games aside because they're not on that subscription service? And this is something that Rico and I have talked about very briefly a lot of like on our Twitter conversations and stuff like that. Do you think that we just if somebody slaps a $60-$70 price tag on a game, are they just going to stop playing those games and wait for them to eventually come to Game Pass, or wait for like a summer sale, or whatever it may be? Do you think we stop paying full price for games? I'm gonna kick it to Toby. What do you think, Toby?
Yeah,
No, I think someone out there is always gonna buy the game first thing, because I've been on the bandwagon for years that I'm gonna wait until this game gets, lower price, or I have games that I don't want anymore and I'm gonna trade them in, even though, trade-in deals are awful, and I'm gonna trade them in and I'm gonna get a game that way. But you and Rico both, I know, will go and get a game day one. So you guys are
I'm
prime
impatient.
examples. You're gonna go out and buy the game. So I don't think they're gonna go, and they're always gonna have those exclusive copies, like with the hard discs, with the special,
The steel books
like
and
I'm
that
trying
kind of
to,
stuff.
yeah, with like the maps, the
Yeah,
soundtracks, and all that extra stuff.
yeah.
the collectibles that people are gonna want to
Yeah,
buy.
and there is
So
that side of it where I was talking with one of my buddies that I play on Xbox with, and I was like, he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go pre-order Halo," and I was like, "Why? It's on Game Pass." And he's like, "Well, I want the pre-order bonuses and all that kind of crap that you get with it." And I was like, "Well, that's an interesting side of it that I didn't really consider before, was that you do miss out on all those, the posters or the little collectibles, like the stupid little necklace thing you got for pre-ordering Cyberpunk and all the physical shit you got with Cyberpunk, that kind of stuff you're missing out on if you play games digitally."
yeah,
Yeah, and there's always going to be that appeal slash market for people who are like really serious about their collections. Like I've can't count like how many like YouTuber videos I would watch, and you'd like see in their office background those like collectible statues you'd get from those like really big deluxe or collector's editions of that you can pre-order and buy for when games release, like Bloodborne, Cyberpunk, God of War, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there is that side of it, but then there's also the side I was telling Rico, like Maneater is the big example that I think of, where I was waiting 100% for that game to come out on Switch because that's where I was playing most of my games at the time. I liked the portability aspect of it. But then the day it launched on Switch, it also came out on Game Pass. So rather than handing that $40 over for the full price, Maneater game on Switch, I play it for free on Game Pass. So do you think that, again, I'm asking, if we hit a point where almost everything is on Game Pass and there's a select few, do you think people are going to still want to pay that full price for a game?
Is definitely hard to say because, like, well, I think if you are an Xbox player, then more than likely you are gonna wait for most games to come on Game Pass, and then like the thing is though is like even if a game like doesn't come to Game Pass for whatever reason, it just doesn't come on Game Pass, does it warrant like you just straight up writing off that game even if it gets like a huge discount? I was like, no, I don't want to pour any money into this game. And that's where like the mindset I'm sort of thinking is like, would Game Pass promote like a sort of environment to where if a game's never going to be available for quote unquote free, is it worth your time anymore to even like invest money into it? And that was like the main thing I was thinking about, because like I think it was like one tweet I saw on Twitter. Like someone said that they weren't gonna like actually invest anything into Scarlet Nexus or buy it whatsoever because it wasn't gonna be on Game Pass. Which is like, okay, if that's how you want to like choose to manage your money, like fine, but you shouldn't just write off a game because you don't get it for, again, quote unquote free.
Well, I will say for me, Scarlet Nexus is not my style game at all. And I was even saying this to you. I was like, if it was on Game Pass, I probably would have given it a shot. But it's not on Game Pass. So I was like, I never even thought about buying it. It was never even a thought that crossed my mind. Where if it was on Game Pass, it's something I would have definitely probably installed and gave a fair shot.
Play it.
Not likely. But yeah, it's just an interesting situation. Especially because, like, I have the Series X, right? I have not put a game in my disk drive. Think about that. Shut up. There's not been a single game that has gone in my disk drive on the Xbox. Versus PlayStation, I have pretty much all physical copies.
It's because the cases are so pretty.
Yeah, that's not the reason.
It's because you want that nice white PS5 border.
Yeah, it's just it's a weird thing to think about. And I definitely think we are moving toward a digital future, and that is where Game Pass is really going to bring more people to the Xbox consoles.
Yeah, and then if we do move more towards that digital future, then I think it's going to be at that point where like Sony might consider like buckling down and doing like some sort of top tier digital subscription service, or who knows, maybe like Tony said, they might not, and they just stick to what they know. It's just a matter of wait and see, really.
That's why I was saying I don't think it's like it's not a short-term thing that we're going to see the effects of Game Pass. I think it's definitely going to be the long term of Game Pass. Now, I am also interested in because Game Pass is still relatively new. I'm interested if it does stand the test of time. Like if this is just something that's like a buzzword right now, and it'll eventually phase out because it's just, I don't know. Right now, it doesn't seem like it's possible with all the offerings that they're doing, with all the new games that are dropping. But I'm curious to see, how it affects the Microsoft game plan moving forward if it does end up surviving?
I think one way it might affect that game plan is because, like you said, you just finished playing Psychonauts, a game that came out how long ago? Maybe Xbox also uses Game Pass as a way see where what players are playing, if they're going back, if they're playing newer stuff that drops day and date, or see how many are actually going back and playing older stuff, and maybe they look back and as oh, okay, a lot of people are playing this, so maybe we could do a remaster or sequel of it in the future, since it seems like a lot of people have interest in it.
Yeah, I definitely also think it's a way for them to market their old games. Because
Yeah.
Some people might be interested in the new Psychonauts and they see the old ones on there and they're like, okay, and they drop the $15 to go play the old one. I definitely think it's a way for them to monetize their old games without actually right now Sony's just kind of monetizing old games by re-releasing them versus Microsoft is like, hey, spend $15 and you can go play our old stuff. And they're getting a lot of what they say, they're at 18 million current active users on Game Pass. That's a lot of cheddar each month.
It's a lot of cheddar.
So it's definitely
I love the provolone.
It's definitely a way for them to monetize their old games on top of the new games. But I also think there was a thought. I lost it. Go ahead, someone talk about something because I've completely lost it. It'll come back to me here in a second.
I had a needle stuck in my arm. No, it wasn't drugs. I just like the feeling of getting poke stuck.
Oh, I got it. Okay, good conversation, Caleb. You're good for the children.
You're welcome.
But I remember I was thinking in terms of back to the sales point, are people going to stop buying games? From what Microsoft has put out and what they've said about Game Pass is they're actually seeing an increase in certain sales of games because people hop in and they try game genres that they haven't tried before and they haven't played, but then they end up really liking, and then they get their crew together and they're like, okay guys, we really like this one, let's go over and play this, which is a very similar game but that's not on Game Pass. So they'll all go on the Microsoft store, buy whatever game, and then they all play that one, and they're seeing more sales that way, on top of there being games that are taken off. And maybe there's a game that you really liked playing that was on Game Pass and they take it off, you're likely going to go buy that game off the Microsoft store. So I think it's an interesting way that we're seeing an increase in game sales by getting quote unquote free games.
Yeah, that, and you also got to kind of think, mainly with the games that drop day and date on Game Pass, you got to think of what kind of deal does Xbox have with these games, to where it's what kind of percentage or cut do they get of Game Pass numbers if you have a game that drops, like you said, day and date on Game Pass, to where maybe it's a significant enough cut to where they can release games on Game Pass and not count it as a loss, even if it doesn't really necessarily do well. Which that was the main thing I was kind of thinking of.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that too, because it's typically you'd think we're supporting the game producers and everything by buying the copies of the game. And with Game Pass, we're just downloading those games for $15 a month, and we can download as many new games as we want. So how are they getting their money? And are we going to be able to keep Game Pass going for that aspect? Is Xbox/Microsoft going to be able to keep dishing out that massive sum of cash the entire time throughout these next couple of years?
It's interesting to think about because I'm sure they're writing checks. That's how they're doing. They're writing checks to get these games on there. But a lot of the games that are coming are Microsoft Studios, so they're already paying for the development of that game. Where it's with Psychonauts, they gave Tim Schafer the money and they're like, make the game you want to make and it'll be on Game Pass. So and there are those people outside of that are still buying games on Xbox. They, for whatever reason, there are the people that are very much against the Game Pass service. They still want to buy their games, which is still a valid option. If you don't like Game Pass, just buy your games. They're not forcing you into it. But there are those people as well. So there are still game sales. Obviously, they're not as significant because you can just pay for Game Pass. But there are those people that are, again, like my buddy who said he's going to go pre-order Halo even though it's on Game Pass. There are those people that are going to get those physical copies. So there are still separate incomes aside from the Game Pass check that they're getting from Xbox. There are that additional income from buying it, at a GameStop or on the Microsoft Store or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and that's I think like additional income because like I'm still thinking like it has to be a pretty decent check that's the non at least the non Xbox Studio games are getting to put their games on Game Pass to where like any games bought outside of that is just basically extra chunk change for them to spend on their next big game.
Yeah. Well, then it's also like if you think of the Psychonauts, if Xbox, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not an insider on this. I don't know the actual business insides of any of this, but
Are you
if
sure?
if Xbox just gives them the money, wouldn't technically it be majority profit if they made any additional sales? I guess
It has to
you
be.
obviously have to pay everybody for it, but at a certain point, if you're having that Game Pass check or you're getting all that money from Game Pass subs, like I'm sure Halo is going to get a bunch of people to sign up for Game Pass. You know what I mean? They're going to come in
It
droves,
definitely
and
is.
being a long service game, obviously not necessarily in the terms of Halo because of the multiplayer being free. But if you look at something like Forza, where you're going to be playing that long term, there's going to be updates. People are going to pay month over month to play that game. So you got to look at it in that sense as well, is how long are people subbing to play these games, and is that going to make up more money than what they would have actually ended up spending on just buying the game individually?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to like think about. Consider like you'd definitely have to have like some sort of insider perspective or knowledge of it and wondering like how do these like deals work out with games on Game Pass? What kind of money or do they have cut out and all that stuff. It's a lot to think about. There's probably a whole lot that goes into it and the inner workings of it. But I mean, it must be something good that works out if because it's not, let's put it this way, it's not necessarily like Xbox that's keeping Game Pass going. It's the developers. It's developers wanting to put their games like on Game Pass. So it must be a good enough deal. This is just my thought process, in my opinion. It must be a good enough deal to where, like I said earlier, developers can put their games on Game Pass with no worry, no stress about money or like having to worry about any actual sales or anything like that.
There is that, and then I definitely think from a developer standpoint, especially if you look at like a smaller company, somebody that's putting out an indie game, Game Pass is something that you don't necessarily have to really be like, hey everybody, come buy our game. It's already there for them. It's like, hey people, just go download our game. And that gets more hype generated around, the particular studio, whatever it may be.
Well, I mean, yeah, a great example of that is the game I pre-downloaded, Chris Tales. Like it's an indie company that made it and they put it on Game Pass. So like I would have never heard about this game unless it was on Game Pass. So
And I do think Microsoft does a good job at promoting new games on Game Pass. I definitely think when you go through the actual interface of Game Pass, the coming soon stuff, because you played this game, check out this list of games. They do a pretty good job at showing you all the different types of games and offerings that they have on the service.
Yeah, especially at stuff like E3, a whole bunch of the stuff they'll show at E3, whether it's indie games or Xbox Studio games, they'll say like right then and there if it's going to be like dropping on Game Pass or not, which, announcing that game alone at an Xbox conference pretty much almost confirms that, yeah, this will probably come to Game Pass, and that's pretty good promotion, especially for any indie games that get shown.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I mean, if you think about it, there are the people that probably like, because again, we talked about this in the last podcast. Was like we're dialed in on this stuff. We pay attention to this shit, where the average consumer doesn't. So when they see that, coming to Game Pass day one, that kind of thing at E3 or in a trailer or something, I wonder how many actual subscriptions that moves to people just not hearing about it, and then all of a sudden they see Game Pass in a trailer or on TV or whatever it may be, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm going to sub to Game Pass right now and see what that's all about." What did you do to your headset?
I didn't know that the mic unplugged.
But yeah, I'm curious
I,
as how many subs it actually moves forward just off people, seeing Game Pass at the end of a trailer or something before that game that they're interested in even comes out.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to say because like you just said, like me, you, and Tony, we're dialed into where like we pay very close attention to like what they show and what gets announced when these games get revealed. Whereas like, how much does the average consumer like really pay attention to this stuff? How much does little Timmy sitting in front of the TV on a Friday night who's like 7 or 8 years old. How much is he looking for something to be on Game Pass so he can hound his parents for their credit card again so he can go get Game Pass?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, which is why it's so confusing. Like, it's why it's such an anomaly. We don't know the insides of Game Pass. We just don't know why it works, but it seems to be working incredibly well, especially given the fact that they announced that 27 games are coming to Game Pass. Out of the 30 they showed off, 27 of those are coming day and date on Game Pass. They have to have the secret sauce. This has to be working to some capacity.
They have to have that good cane sauce. I'm telling you right here now, bud.
Like, there's something there that is working fundamentally well.
Yeah, it's like they basically behind the scenes they must have be like, it's like we got everything down pat. Phil Spencer, he's not really stressed about anything. He's just lounging in his office sipping out of a coconut or something. Has like a VR headset head on, and with the power of Xbox he's actually sitting on a beach in the Cancun's or something like that. They just probably have no worries back there because I feel like they pretty much have Game Pass down and pat with how it works, how they promote it, the marketing, everything.
And that's what I'm just curious to see where it goes, because like right now it is such a buzzword. Everybody that talks about Xbox talks about Game Pass because it's such a phenomenal system. I'm very curious. I'd love to see like the inner workings of how all these deals go down, because it just doesn't make sense. In like Tony was saying, how are these companies making money for being on a subscription service like this while we're just downloading their games instead of buying the actual retail price games? It's all super interesting, and it's really curious how this is going to just progress over the next few years.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think a lot about. Like, who knows? Maybe if it's even more than a money deal, like maybe like these smaller companies, they make a deal with Xbox where like maybe they get X amount of money and they get like they put like so many of their games onto Game Pass with that deal. So who knows? Maybe it's not just money that gets worked with these deals between Xbox and these developers. Maybe it's actual like exclusivity deals too.
Could be exclusivity. It could be manpower. They could be given some help from additional studios. There's a lot of different angles I feel like there could be in terms of how this all operates, but I'm just very, very curious as how Game Pass progresses, especially over the course of this particular generation, moving into whatever comes next. I don't know what the hell could come next, but I'm very interested in seeing how Game Pass evolves over the course of this generation, this 8 to 10 years that this generation's life cycle is going to be.
Yeah, because let's face it, this current gen of games is going to be around for a very long time. Who knows how much that Game Pass is going to evolve, and with Sony, who knows if like their online subscription service, if that'll change at all, or they'll just keep it doing what they've been doing now for technically 2 generations now.
Yeah, it's very curious. I think right now, for sure, back on the topic of Sony, they're riding this out. They are not thinking about Game Passes at all. It's business as usual for them. They're putting out their experience. They're re-releasing everything. Like the Nathan Drake collection got leaked, and that's supposedly coming. And they just put out the Nathan Drake collection on PS4, and now they're doing it. We get Uncharted 4 included this time. They just keep putting out these games, and like I said earlier, people show up in droves for these PlayStation games, and it seems to be working just fine for them. They're doing pretty good just off of that alone, but I wonder if that'll be enough in the future.
Well, I'm curious. Do either of you actually want PlayStation to have their own like Game Pass?
Yes.
I I
You
don't
guys
know if
both have it, so I was just curious.
Right. That's the thing. Like, I don't know. Like, they do have the PS Now, and how it is now hasn't like interested me at all. So I don't know if it's something that I would particularly want, but something I'm more sort of like curious to see if they like actually double down and sort of like take it more seriously and promote it as this actual like big selling point of PlayStation like much later down the road. Obviously they don't need to now, but who knows, that might something they just consider doing in a couple years from now.
It's kind of like it's a back and forth for me on if I want PlayStation to have their own Game Pass service. I think it would be awesome, but as someone who already has Game Pass and is playing, if the game comes out on Game Pass, that's where I'm playing it versus, having to pick and choose. What I'm spending my money mainly on is the exclusives on other consoles. Like I'm playing, the Switch stuff and the PlayStation stuff. That's where I'm spending the money. So I don't really, it's not like I have to pick and choose if I have to play my Xbox stuff or my PlayStation stuff. All the money I would have spent on Xbox is now getting put into the PlayStation side. So it's like, I don't necessarily need them to have a subscription service like Game Pass. It's not something that I'm, dying for or craving for. But at the same time, Xbox does it really well with the, backwards compatibility aspect where I could play games like Psychonauts and it's just there, where Sony doesn't really have that right now. So if I got a subscription service like Game Pass out of Sony, I would want them, that would be their big selling point, is like, hey, we've heard your prayers, we're putting backwards compatibility all the way back, and we've got all of these classic PS1, PS2, PS3 games, they're all on our service. That is what would get me to play the PlayStation, whatever it be, PS Now if they revamp it, or whatever PlayStation Game Pass they decide to do. That would be the situation I'd want. But right now, I don't really need a PlayStation Game Pass.
Sly Cooper!
Yeah, see, like, there's games that they just kind of left behind that we're only going to be able to play if they decide they're going to, make a new collection. And then it's a full $60 price tag, that kind of thing. So that's what I would like to see if they do a subscription, but if they don't, like I said, I'm not really craving it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, if they do something like that, I'm not necessarily gonna like hop on it right away. I'm just gonna basically be like, wait and see. Like, if it's something good and I think worth it, yeah, I'll pick it up. If it's something that's, doesn't really offer much to me personally, then I'll just leave it be. But it's not something I'm absolutely like, gnawing at my nails and like praying that they do one day. I'm pretty, content right now with the games. Yeah.
Well, what about you, Toby? Because you don't have a PlayStation, and you are that person that if it comes out at full price, you're normally waiting for a price drop. So what do you think in terms of, because you say you want a PlayStation 5? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, personally, I think that I don't think that they should try to go for it. Like, I don't think that it'd be worthwhile because the exclusivity of what they have now, it brings the people to them.
Yeah,
And
it's
I mean,
definitely
it's
moving
bringing me
consoles.
to them. Like, because I want a PlayStation 5. So I mean, what they're doing is good, and it makes them stand out a little bit as well. Because if Nintendo and PlayStation were to try to follow suit with this, they're just like they don't have their own individuality. Whereas
Nintendo?
PlayStation right now with if they were to follow suit,
But
is what I
that's,
was
see,
saying.
in terms of the individuality thing, I think Xbox still has that. They still have that. We have Halo, we have Gears, we have Forza, we have Bethesda. We have all of these things that are inherently Xbox. I don't think that would change if Nintendo or PlayStation did that. They just have their games on their service.
I mean, yeah, but it'd be like, oh well, we saw Microsoft do it and they did it well. I guess we have to follow it now.
Yeah, I think what Tony's getting at is like, it wouldn't really bode well if it like choosing your console comes down to is like, which subscription service do I want to do? I think that's what he means by like losing their individuality. Am I right on that?
Yeah.
Kinda.
Well, again, I think that also comes back to my point earlier about the difference between Xbox versus PlayStation, where it is the hardware side on PlayStation with the DualSense and the 3D audio headset. I think that's what's going to keep the individuality. Whereas, like,
Well,
what
you
makes
really
this
think that Xbox is never gonna get there though?
with the hardware
Like, you don't
side?
think that Xbox will ever upgrade their
No,
controller?
no,
They're always gonna be
I
this basic, and we're never gonna get
well,
anything
no.
like
Phil
it.
Spencer already talked about how they're thinking about how the DualSense is a fantastic controller and how they'd like to adapt their controller to do similar things. I'm saying
Well, exactly. Well, then PlayStation doesn't have that anymore.
again, but that's what I'm saying. I think the individuality comes from what they offer at that particular time. For example, the Nintendo Switch right now, it's the only hybrid console on the market. It's the only company right now that truly has a handheld console on the market. And that's what makes Nintendo. They're quirky. They don't really care about, the ray tracing or the fidelity. They care about making these goofy, quirky consoles that you could play in your living room with your family and your friends and have these very unique experiences on them. And that is what is inherently Nintendo. I don't think putting a subscription service on top of that would really change that.
Oh, Luigi.
But you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't think putting a subscription service and throwing Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey and Mario Kart and all that shit on there would actually affect what makes Nintendo.
Yeah, and that's charging as much money out of you as possible instead of offering a subscription service.
I have zero faith that Nintendo will actually follow suit, because like Mario Kart, it's the same damn Mario Kart that came out on the Wii U with all the DLC added, and it's still to this day like the top 5 best-selling Nintendo Switch games every month.
It's just like Nintendo has some sort of spell on everyone. Like as much as like sometimes we talk shit about it, we're still under Nintendo's spell. Let's face it.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm gonna go spend $60 at the end of the week to get Skyward Sword, and that game came out on the Wii U for the same price. It's freaking years ago.
Exactly. It's like they can't keep getting away with it, but we keep letting them.
Yeah. So I don't think they'll follow suit. Honestly, if I were to see like Nintendo do that at all, I would see them making a deal with Xbox and Game Pass being because they've been doing a lot of the streaming stuff. They've been doing, Controls on there through streaming, Hitman 3's on there through streaming. I could see them going the route of saying, hey, here's the Xbox Game Pass on here, and they get a cut of every subscription that's on the Nintendo Switch. They get a cut from Xbox of that subscription, and that is how, especially when you consider that it is changing right now, that Xbox is growing more popular over in the East, but in Japan and those Asian countries over there, it's a really hard market for Xbox to crack. Whereas, why would you need to crack the market if you just put your service on the most popular console over there,
Yeah.
I mean, like even in China, like more recently, PlayStation is starting to get like a real chokehold on like the entire market of China right now.
I mean, that's kind of different though than Nintendo necessarily following suit and creating their own. They're adding a new platform on then, which only would bring more people to purchase their systems.
I mean, I see. I as of right now, where we sit, I don't see either company, Nintendo and Sony is what I'm talking about. I don't see them making a move and following suit anytime soon. Now, I will say that PlayStation Now has started getting a lot more offerings. I will say in the last couple months, we've seen things like The Witcher, and there's been a couple other big ones that have just dropped on PlayStation Now and are available right now. Like I think Borderlands 3 is on there now. There's a bunch that are on that service, but I don't see them really, hammering it home that this is something that they're interested in anytime soon. Like I said, I mean, Mario Kart is ancient at this point. It came out in 2017 with the Nintendo Switch, and it's still the best selling. So I don't think they're really worried about pushing their games out to more players in that way, because it's just stuff that if you buy a Switch or you buy a PlayStation, there are those games that you're just gonna end up buying, like Ratchet and Clank, like Mario Kart, like Mario Odyssey, that kind of stuff.
I mean, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I guess you got a point there. Yeah. I'm sniffing the tinfoil hat a second.
That's just my standpoint on it. But I don't really have anything else. You guys got anything else? Because I'm running out.
Everybody, play Scarlet Nexus. It's a fun game. Just try and get through the 2-hour prologue.
Are you getting paid for this?
No, I am not being paid for this whatsoever. You didn't have to cock the gun.
But yeah, that's all I've got. If you guys are good, I'm good with wrapping it up.
Yeah,
I got nothing.
All right,
Gucci Mane.
That sounds about right for us. We don't really plan outside of the main topic. But that has been it for the End of the Chat Gaming. That has been it for the End of the Chat Gaming podcast. Thank you for entering the chat with us. Go check out the YouTube channel where we do videos all week long. Whenever the guys send me stuff, the video usually goes up a day or two after. We're all collectively working on stuff all the time over there. There's going to be a lot of gameplay stuff coming soon. There's so many games that all of us are going to be able to play together. So that you can expect game reviews. I'm sure we're going to have some hardware stuff. I'm going to do something comparing the Xbox to the PlayStation. Bunch of stuff coming, gaming related. If that's your jam, check out the YouTube channel. Leave a comment. I said this in the last one. I need to start saying this at the start of the podcast. But if you leave a comment and it's something interesting or funny, I will read it in the next podcast. But that has been it from us, and we'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.